So open source investigations primarily rely on open source information. Open source information is content that is publicly available to anyone online, right? So that's a Facebook post, that's a Twitter post, that could be a video on YouTube. It can be a web page, it could be flight radars, flight logs that are publicly available. Yeah, any information online as long as it's publicly available. And the investigation portion of that is really what they call verifying that piece of media, that open source information. That is a process of what they call geolocation, confirming the location where a video or picture might have been taken. Chronolocation, which is confirming the time that a video or picture might have been taken at. And then visual analysis, which is looking into the video itself or the picture and seeing if it shows what it claims to show, whether that be a car crash or an airstrike or men in a prison, for example. Anyone can be an open source investigator. A huge part of conducting open source investigations, and something that's valued by the open source investigations community, is that anyone can do it, and that it should be easy to follow. But most of the time, people working in open source investigations are journalists, activists, human rights defenders, lawyers sometimes. Yeah. Transparency in methods, transparency in process is vital to an open source investigation. Because you're using content available online, and also just because you are looking oftentimes at significant events that you're reporting on information that could be of use to a whole host of people, including people that are in the conflict itself. It's vital that you are transparent about how you know what steps did you take, what exactly was your methodology, what ethics guidelines did you follow, and so on. So verification for open source investigators is understood almost as a scale, right? So a video could be at a 9 verified, as in we know exactly where it was taken, we know exactly the time it was taken at, and we know exactly what it shows, right? But oftentimes that is not the case. Oftentimes we know where the video is, or we know what location the video shows, but we don't exactly know what time it was taken at. And we don't exactly know, potentially, the perpetrator who's shown in the video, right? So oftentimes we use very specific language as to whether, okay, we know, right, that it was taken at this location, or we're more clear about, okay, it was likely taken at this location, but we're unsure. Could be a chance it was at, in this area of the city. For more traditional forms of investigations, oftentimes you're relying on, witnesses or physical documents, right, that you've collected from on the ground, right? But mainly what open source investigations are doing is kind of what some would call remote sensing, right? Looking from afar in. And a lot of the times, or at least in the case of Mnemonic, we're not interacting too much with the sources of the information we're gathering. Of course, we meet with civil society groups and the people who might be posting this content online, but we're never dealing with what we call closed source information, right? Which is information that is not available to the public. So that could be a video that is sent to someone over WhatsApp, or a video that's sent to someone through an email, right? The Berkeley Protocol was a protocol document, guidebook, developed maybe 2 or 3 years ago to kind of give a more standardized guidelines to how to conduct an open source investigation to ensure or increase its admissibility in court proceedings, right? So it covers ethics guidelines, it covers, what you should do and include in a geolocation, chronolocation, visual analysis, how you should, demonstrate your findings, right, in a written report that might be submitted as a legal complaint, or to the ICC, for example. There's a whole variety of outputs with open source investigations. One being news stories, journalism, right? There's like classic good old reporting on, conflicts, incidents that have occurred both in war zones and like your city that you live in, right? That's one. Another is human rights accountability measures. So we're talking about potential court cases, both domestic and international, right? And then lastly, and a really important one, is memory keeping, right? So kind of preserving the history of a people, the history of the conflict, for education, for academic research later on, and for other just different types of stories, right?